Pencil Kings, 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 Pencil Kings.
Keep working until you reach that level, because it is time put in, and that's what gets you a good portfolio.
Today we're talking with David Tilton. David is just brand new to LA, just recently moved there, and we're going to hear about his story about going cross-country, how he got started. But before we do that, I'm going to let David tell you what he does exactly. And so, David, could you give us a 1-minute overview of what you do, and then we'll dive into deeper about your journey across the country and what you're doing now.
Hey, so my name's David Tilton, like Mitch just said. I'm currently a concept artist at Luma Pictures, handling biz dev and shot paintovers and enhancing compositions of certain things in a film via concept art. I mostly handle the world creation and development of a film IP that we're working on right now. But yeah, that's currently under NDA, so I can't talk much about it.
And so before you got to LA, you were working freelance.
Correct.
And I know that there's a lot of people who want to work freelance and are trying to figure out how to put it all together. There's a lot of advice that says just be awesome and then everything good will happen. But I know that there's more to it from talking to a lot of people. You know, there's different things that people do to get noticed or different relationships that they build over time. How did you build your roster of freelance clients?
I mostly just worked up my portfolio to a level that I thought was desirable or at least good enough for the places I wanted to work for. And then I sent out applications, emails and stuff, just probing to see if there's anyone that was interested. And some got back to me, one of which is Studio Canal. Another one was a small indie film company in Toronto. And another one in Vancouver. It was mostly small stuff to start off with.
And it was literally that simple? Just basically be awesome and send emails out? Or was there more to it?
I don't know. Like, the process of getting to that level is a strenuous one, and it takes a lot of hard work. And I don't know, people hear that a lot, the hard work thing. Like, I don't know, Anthony Jones says it a lot. Mache says it's all hard work. They always say that. But, it really is. And it's just knowing to keep your head down and work and keep working until you reach that level, because it is time put in, and that's what gets you a good portfolio, I think. And trying to tell stories in your images as well and having good designs. That's something where I can improve on those good designs.
So there's hard work, but what did that actually mean for you? Was it we've had people before talk about they left their jobs and so they were just full time working on developing their art skills and basically starting from scratch. Other people don't have that luxury. They have to keep the job and they work in the evening. Some people are students. What did you do in your case?
Well, for me, I started super early, which I think I'm really lucky in this aspect. I started my senior year in high school, so I had a lot of downtime as far as summers and stuff. But after that, I picked up a job at a local grocery store, and I worked every day of the week, and that took up a lot of my time. So my way around it was just working on my craft, on my art at night. And I was sleeping 3-4 hours, 5 hours, maybe 6 if I was lucky. But yeah, that was that lasted for half a year. No, a bit 2/3 of the year. And then I cut down on the hours, and then I eventually quit that job that summer.
So you would basically do the grocery job in the day, and then as soon as you got home, just
art.
diving
I wouldn't even change my clothes, wouldn't take a shower, wouldn't eat. I'd turn on my computer, start Photoshop, get going, or start my 3D program I was using. Either it was Moto, 3D Coat. I don't know. I jump around softwares a lot now. But yeah, just get down and get to work. Don't waste time, because I don't know, like I had like a mental like timer, like, oh shit, I'm not gonna be good enough. I always like put pressure on myself that I wasn't gonna make it and stuff, which was good, but I was also detrimental in a lot of ways.
What do you mean detrimental? It sounds
Like,
like to me it sounds like you did amazing. You're a young guy. You're self-taught, or did you have
yeah,
like a mentor or anything like that?
I was self-taught for a while, and then I took my friend Jama Jurabev helped me out a bunch. I don't know if you know him. He works for ILM London right now, but I don't know, listeners probably have heard of him. He's pretty big in the industry, but we used to play like StarCraft together and stuff, and he used to like joke around with me that, I need to work harder and stuff. And then eventually I took it to heart. So I think that was a good push. But if you don't have that, I think that you can also give that push to yourself, like, be self-motivated entirely. Like, I think I would have done decently in that way if I didn't have like somebody like Jama.
So he helped kind of guide you, like
Well,
I'm curious about how you learn, because there's a lot of people that they can't afford art school. Art school costs so much money. It's
oh
crazy.
man, I almost fell into that trap as well.
Yeah, and so there's people that are joining. There's Pencil Kings, there's Schoolism, there's CGMA. There's a whole bunch of different people offering courses. There's YouTube. There's so many different ways
Yeah.
that you can learn. But I'm curious how you did it, because it's always better to hear from somebody who did it versus somebody who's just theorizing. Right now I'm just theorizing of different ways to do it, because I had my own journey.
Exactly.
But for you, and I'm interested in your journey, because I know there's a lot of people who are sitting in your shoes and they want to learn. They're probably not as serious as they need to be, and they might not have somebody who's telling them repeatedly, you need to work harder.
Yeah.
But in terms of actually learning it, can you, I'm fascinated to learn how other people are learning. And so for yourself, what did it look like? Was there like books that you got, or were there people that you followed online and just soaked up everything that they did and then put it into action? Or was it just brute force of more painting? Or
a lot of it was watching like Gumroads and stuff, and just trying to understand someone's process and trying to like apply that. But eventually that got to the point where I was starting to look like, well, in this case, Maciej Kuchara, I was getting too close to him for my, like, in my opinion. I thought it was getting way too close as far as the style. So I backed off a bit, and started to paint more. And that's when I stumbled upon Learn Squared and took Jama's course and stuff. I knew him before then, but as far as learning, I just say, I don't know, find somebody that you like, or a few people or something, and see what makes them unique, and try to distill that into like, like core fundamentals and stuff, and try to apply that to your work, and then try to expand on that by either reading or your own discoveries while painting and so on. I think that's the quickest way of doing it. Other people probably have their own opinions on that, but I'd probably agree with them as well, because it's a lot of things that all funnel into having success.
yeah, so I like what you said about following someone too closely and then wanting to back off because you eventually become like a copy of that person, or it's just influencing you in too deep of a way. So then you're kind of losing your own voice, or you're not making your own discoveries. Do you think that's accurate?
Exactly.
That statement?
Yeah, exactly. Of course, some people do find a decent amount of work and success in that route, but the way I see it, you're pretty much becoming a clone of that person, and they could just hire the original.
But I would kind of argue that, I guess, because I feel like, how to say this, that person like everyone's limited by the amount of work that they can do,
Mm-hmm.
how many hours in the day that they can sit at a computer or do their thing basically. And there's too much work that nobody can do all the work. So even if you're a clone,
Yeah.
and if that's where you start, I would say it's okay to start as the clone
Yeah, that's perfectly fine starting there.
because you can always grow from there, especially in the beginning. Like you're now where you're at a studio, you're surrounded by so many people who can influence you, even just having lunch with them, and they'll tell you to, hey, you should really check out this thing. And then you do that and you could go in a completely different direction with your personal pursuits.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
it's just getting that first job or that first break or whatever that's so
It's
hard.
hard.
And
Yeah,
once you get it, then it's like, wow, this is like so, not necessarily that it's easy, but it's so straightforward after that point because you're meeting all the right people, and as long as you're working as a professional and continue to improve in all areas, things happen pretty quickly.
That's true. That's true. Um, yeah, it's perfectly fine starting out as a clone early on, or I hate using the word clone, but
So do
having
I, but I can't
influences,
think of a better word.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
having influences of other artists in your work is perfectly fine starting out. But say one of the Naughty Dog guys, like say Nick Gindro was getting a bunch of freelance offers or something, but he was swamped at work from Naughty Dog, right? He'd just hand off that work to his friend, He'd be like, it's a lot of it's recommendations. As far as if someone can't handle like that amount of work, they'd just, parcel it out to friends. And I do that myself because right now, like the setup I'm on, I can't do a lot of 3D work on it. So pumping out the quality of work I'd need to do freelance for like film companies and stuff wouldn't be viable for me right now. So I just hand it off to friends.
Let's change directions just a little bit. And I want to talk about this idea of working really hard until it's good enough. And then sort of it sounds like you had a self standard or standard that you were looking to get to where you're like, okay, it's good enough.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like that's really subjective. Or was there a specific point that you were trying to get to where you knew once you achieved that thing, then it's like, okay, I'm ready?
Yeah, exactly that. Like I just set like a crazy high shooting point, like somewhere like a crazy high goal as far as quality. And just kept striving for that. Like I don't know if you know like Dylan Cole and Steve Messing, like those matte painting concept artists, like they're
Yeah.
super polished work and stuff, but also the designs are really well done. And I just tried to aim for that quality, not their style, but their quality, which is different. Like the amount of polish and how clean something is and stuff like that. And I'm still trying to get there. I think it might take me a couple more years, to be honest, because those guys have got like decade on me or something as far as time spent on their craft. But yeah, I just set a goal, whether it's to be on the same level as somebody that you look up to or a studio's like work quality. Like that's another good way of doing it. Buy the studio's art book that you want to work for and aim for that quality, and even do like a project influenced by theirs. Like I know Sung Choi, he works at Bungie right now, but he bought the Destiny art book and just made pieces that were reminiscent. They weren't copies or anything. They were complete, like they were amazingly done and like some of the best images I've ever seen in my life as far as concept art. But they had some of the same vibes of the Destiny concept work in them, and he applied and got a job at Bungie. So.
Yeah, I love that strategy of like reimagining something that's already there, and because
Exactly.
it's becomes much less of a risk for the studio if you're going to fit in with their team, because like, wow, this these characters, we could just put them in with the next DLC or expansion
Exactly. Your
or
work already
iteration or
fits
whatever.
within their IP, and they don't have to like worry about like, oh, will this guy be a fit? Can you conform to the style of the game we're working on or the film or so on? Film's a bit different because, like the turnaround times are a lot quicker than a game. So it's good to have a varying or like a flexible style instead of like one direction where, like a game IP could last, I don't know, like 4 years of development and then, another year or two of DLC on top of that, in development as well. So they'd want a steady style throughout, I'd imagine. But I haven't worked in games, so this is all just word of mouth that I've heard.
So do you remember, was there a piece that you were able to take it to that quality bar that you wanted? And the reason I keep asking about this is because I'm thinking about the people listening, and I want, if you're in that place where you haven't had your break yet and you're working at home, I want them to understand kind of the mindset that you had in doing this. So was there a piece that when you were done, or you finally put your stylus down, that you were like, yes, this is it. Like, I feel so good about this piece that I really pushed it. All the work is paying off. Nobody knows it yet, but this is it. Did you have that feeling?
Yeah, I've had like a few breakthrough moments like that. The first one was my first photo bash actually, like because I was painting a lot before then, and one day my buddy Bo Zoneveld, who was also a big help as far as like giving critique and stuff throughout my journey, and still is, was that he was like, oh, you should try photo bashing, because he was a matte painter and now he's a concept artist, but matte painters usually handle a lot of photo work and manipulation and so on to create their plates and matte paintings and stuff. So I gave it a try, and the result was immediately way better than any paintings. But one thing that I see a lot of people make mistakes of, they don't bother painting. Like, a lot of people just go straight into photo bashing, and I think you miss out on a lot of fundamentals when you do that. So that's just something to keep in mind when you go into that. But my biggest like breakthrough moment, I didn't even realize it was a breakthrough. Like, myself, I thought like, oh, it still doesn't feel finished, and then I just posted it because I didn't know how to fix it, and the responses I was getting from other people were like, it's good, just throw it up and not worry about it. And it's the wall piece. It's like a lava wall. I'll link it to you on Skype. But this was the one that was the breaking point as far as my quality, and then everything after that was either as good or better.
Awesome. And I'm so glad that you sent me a link so we can talk about it, and we'll put this image with the show notes and stuff that we have for this. So what was different about this piece than other things that you had done? Did you approach it differently? Do you think it was just a matter of time? It might have been luck too, because I've had that experience where you work on a bunch of things and it's okay, but then you do one, it's like, no, this one is whatever it is. Like,
yeah,
the art luck was with me that time. And I think the more that you work, the more that you have luck, until you realize it's like, oh, I just put in a lot of time and now I know what is good and what isn't. But what was it about this piece that you felt really helped you with that breakthrough?
Just trying to nail down a good process, I think, of like a workflow using photos and painting and having a balance between the two. I think nailing that down was a big help in this. Like, this was like where it was like, okay, this is my workflow. I know how to do it. And it was straightforward as far as like gathering reference photos, collaging them together, and painting on top, and so on, color correcting, and all that. Like, my workflow is very, it's like I was saying, it was trying to get as close to the Steve Messing and Dylan Coles of the world. And so my workflow was based around theirs as far as like the approach using photos and 3D and all that stuff.
Oh, that's so cool. And I hope that more people can aspire to that point. But it sounds like with this one, the lava flows, that this is the one that you weren't sure if it was finished or not, and then you got the validation from other people, and they're like, yeah, thumbs up, post this one.
Yeah, exactly. Like I still think I could have pushed it more. And now I see where it was, wasn't as good and stuff. And, but that's just now because I've gone, this is almost a year old now and I've progressed so much more since then.
Yeah. I think it's always like that. You go back and look and you're like, oh, wow. There's even, I feel like every project, every artist can go back and look and pinpoint things.
Where point things that they would have done differently decisions. And better, or in their eyes, it would have been better.
So the next thing I want to ask is, how did you manage to find these people that were mentoring you or being sounding boards or on the journey with you? Because this is another common thing that I've started to figure out. I'm really trying to decipher the code so that I could tell a new artist when they're like, hey, what should I do? Everyone's, going at it in all these different ways, and there's no necessarily like a formula. But this one thing of having this peer group where it's so important, because you post something online, you get all this random feedback. You don't know these people. They're not invested in you. But how did you originally cultivate? Because it's hard for me to remember back when I was starting. And I remember doing this. I made a decision and I was like, okay, I've been messing around with 3D, but now it's time to get serious about it. And there's a few other people, but I don't remember where I found these people. Do you?
I don't know. I just added a bunch of people on Facebook and started talking to them. But I made sure not to be overly annoying. Like, I didn't message people and say hi every single day kind of thing, Mm-hmm. And I think that's something to stay conscious of, because I see a lot of people do it, even to me, now that I've got some recognition. People message me and stuff, but there's some people that are overly annoying in that way. I know they're out to be nice and stuff, and I answer their messages still just because I have the time. But if it was, say, somebody who was swamped with work and working on 6 feature films or something for Warner Brothers, right, they wouldn't have the time and they'd be annoyed by that. So that's something to stay conscious of when approaching people, especially people that are busy, as far as work and stuff. Google Hangouts were a big help once you establish these connections, so you can share your work process. You can share techniques and stuff by screen sharing and all that, which was probably a giant help. My buddy Bo showed me how to photograph via Google Hangout, and that was invaluable.
Right. So I don't want this to run too long, but I do want to talk about, you're working, you're in Boston at this point, and then you want to start applying for studio jobs, but you did it in a way that I think you hoped would make you stand out, and I think it worked. But what did you actually do so that if somebody's trying to do the same thing as you, they get some ideas that's better than just sending random portfolios and sort of faceless emails?
Yeah, okay. So first I made a giant list of companies. It was probably a list of 300 companies or something, in a Google spreadsheet, an Excel spreadsheet pretty much, and color-coded it to, green if I get in, yellow if I get a reply, and red if I get a denial. And I went through all the, probably a third of the companies and applied, and the ones that I really wanted to work for, I made the cover letters or email introduction personal, and and then attached the resume and stuff. And I think that helped making it a bit more personal than, say, a generic cover letter. Helped a bit as far as standing out, and helped get me replies from companies.
But what do you mean by personal? You say it it's just super easy.
I mean, but saying that you're passionate about their projects and that you liked, say, if Luma worked on Deadpool, pointing that out, being aware of what they worked on and knowing how it did, and, where the project is, say if it's in production now, and saying that you'd love to work on something, like say if you, I don't know, like I'll just use the Ghost in the Shell movie, even though it's not looking too good, but say you wanted to work on that, approaching them and saying that you'd love the stuff you're seeing on Ghost in the Shell and would hope to be a part of it, even though the production's wrapping up. I'm just using that as an example.
Yeah.
Yeah, like stuff like that. Just making it seem like you're a person and not just a robot sending out emails.
Definitely. So, and I like that. And I wanted to get clarification because I wasn't sure if you were tailoring your portfolio to them, but just like doing the basic research about what they're doing, that's not too hard. It's not beyond anybody, what anybody can do.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. And you think that was one of the things that helped you stand out and get the interviews?
Yeah, totally. At least it was a part of it. Work is also like your work quality is also a big thing, and networking also helps. If you know somebody in the company, that can either put in a good word for you or, pull some strings or something, that's always helpful. And just having your name out there, once you reach that where you think you're good enough and start sending out applications, your name will start going around places. And also if you go to networking events, that, ups your chances exponentially, I feel like. CTN or like, Trojan Horse Was a Unicorn just happened. Same thing with Industry Workshop, even though those are in Europe, and they're, that'd be quite an investment if you're working at like a part-time job or something. So, sticking with Facebook and stuff is fine as far as networking, I think. But yeah, just making sure your work quality is good is a biggie, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think that's this has been really helpful for me to understand your process of getting hired and how you learned. And I hope that people listening picked up on the questions that I asked. And I feel like the answer is that it's not that difficult. It's just, putting in a lot of work and then having a peer group, which, is not that difficult to find some people that you look up to on Facebook where you don't be annoying to them.
Yeah,
and you
exactly.
Basically just show that, look, I'm
it's like
really
a give
hungry.
And take thing,
Yeah. And if they can see that you're serious about this and that you're making like pretty big improvements, and if they give you feedback, you actually act on it and improve your work, they're going to want to help you more.
Exactly.
Because I feel like it's very rewarding to help somebody break in.
Exactly.
And
when
then
you see somebody grow, it's like, oh, it's just so nice to see,
Yeah, and then you get organized and you make a list of all the places that you'd like to work. And I'm sure you had some that you're like, man, I would love to work there. Other places where you're like, I've never heard of this company, but they do cool work.
Yeah,
so I'm putting them on the list.
Exactly.
And then you just literally play a numbers game, and you don't email 300 places on the first day. You just do it in little stages.
Exactly.
And
like
see how it goes.
And just...
Yeah, and it's very straightforward, and that leads to some freelance jobs, which gets you accelerating even faster. Now you're making connections. You're probably getting art direction on your stuff, improving more, and you keep applying, and then it's only a matter of time at that point, I feel like.
Exactly. Just I took a methodical approach to it, which I think helped, way more than just kind of winging it. I know a lot of people just wing it and they still make it, which is fine. They just keep working until somebody calls them, which I think is fine if you've got the time to spare, because at the end of the day, making art is to satisfy yourself. At least I hope that's what everybody's goal is, to be self-fulfilled in their craft.
Yeah, and I guess we've got to wrap up here, but the last question I have, for somebody, like your friend who was telling you to work harder, and how hard were you working before you made that mental decision of like, okay, I'm actually going to work harder, and then how hard were you working after? Because I feel like a lot of people don't realize how hard some people are working. They think that, I open Photoshop for an hour today, and I did a tutorial for half an hour. I watched a video, and then I drew for a half an hour, but then I was busy. That
This is
doesn't
what I
cut it.
would do. Like, the biggest thing that, like, like made something snap in my head was that I set a timer, right? And every time that I'd, either get out of Photoshop or the 3D program I was working in and go watch a YouTube video or go on Facebook, I'd stop the timer, and I'd see like how long it would take to run the timer up, like, just by watching the clock. And, the first day it took I set only like a 2-hour timer, right? But it took me like 4 or 5 hours to get through it, because I'd always go off and procrastinate. So that's a big thing.
Oh,
There's also
so it was
apps
like
for that now, so you can, let the app monitor you, and they'd send you emails and stuff now, which is a good help.
so it was like a counting up timer.
Yeah, exactly.
Was that like a browser plugin or what? I feel like a lot of people would really have their eyes opened if they had installed something like that. What kind of app can people use for that now?
Rescue Timer, I think is what it's called.
Oh, Rescue Time. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rescue Time, if you haven't heard of it, it just sits there in the background monitoring everything that you do all day long. But then you can go back and it will show you like Photoshop 1 hour. And you can
Man,
you could literally have
for like 3 years, like stuff
yeah,
like that.
you could have literally sat at your desk all day, but you're only actually in Photoshop for like an hour, and then the other time it was like WhatsApp Web or Facebook or whatever else. But yeah, give that a shot. I think that's a really great piece of advice to start looking at your time a lot more closely. So once you were aware of that, then what happened? Like how many hours a day were you spending after when you really got serious?
I'd spend anywhere from like 7 to 13, 14 hours. Like, like sometimes I'd pull all nighters and stuff just because I was trying to be time efficient. There's some days where I didn't touch Photoshop or anything at all, and played video games, but you need to have rest days. I think it's kind of like working out, in a way, as far as, working those art muscles and then having a day just to let your mind relax and not worry about it all.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Well, David, thank you so much for sharing this journey. We didn't talk really about your life in the studio now, but I think this is really helpful for me. I learned some things. I think this is a good episode that I can refer people back to when they say, hey, I want to do X, and I can just say, okay, well, go spend some time listening to this episode and see if you're doing your work to the level that it needs to be, if you're putting the amount of time that you need to, and if not, what can we do to help you get it a lot higher? Because I feel like we've just, in 30 minutes, we've laid out a very straightforward approach that somebody can use to looking up to people. And, I went through all the points before, but thank you so much for laying this out. Very, very helpful.
Yeah, no problem. It was a pleasure. Had a lot of fun.
So where can people go where's the best place for people to go and find you online?
Facebook and ArtStation are my two biggest conduits right now. And if somebody wants to message me on Facebook or something, or add me or something, I think I have a bunch of friends list spots open still, so I should be able to add people. And, if they need help or something, just hit me up.
Perfect. And as usual, we'll have show notes and links, and we'll have that lava image as well that David was talking about at pencilkings.com/podcast. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this, I would love to hear from you. And if you can, leave a 5-star review on iTunes. It really helps us get the word out to more artists. Thanks again, David. I really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Scope demands patience, skill, years of practice.
Ah, you talk like a fool. I would trade a century of practice for an ounce of inspiration.